Have West Ham found the future of left back for the club? Lucas Paqueta is attracting some big interest from a big club with big money potentially involved, and West Ham might have finally locked down that central midfield position we've needed to since Declan Rice left. It's the West Ham transfer rumour show, ladies and gentlemen, but with a twist today, okay? Not just that I'm here, and yes, admittedly, compared to Gio, that's a downgrade. I get it. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's just the way these things go sometimes. But more importantly, every story we talked about today, the source is top tier. If you were to rank every person, right? Gio speaks about this a lot on reliability, who you can trust, who, when they say something, you can fully believe. All of these stories are S tier, top ranking people. None of this do you know, I was gonna name specific outlets. I won't do that. I won't start taking shots. But these are people you know and you can trust. We'll start by talking about James Ward-Prowse, who seems to be the guy who was most likely to come in after Edson Alvarez to partner him. We've been told since Declan Rice left, it's always been the belief of most people that we were going to have to sign two people, and James Ward-Prowse seems to be the person we're aiming at most likely. And two, count them, two top tier sources have spoken about this yesterday. First up, David Ornstein at The Athletic. Quote, West Ham working to conclude deal to sign James Ward-Prowse from Southampton as soon as possible. Saints keen for the 28-year-old to face Norwich on Saturday, but now an increasing likelihood it will be his final game for boyhood club. And then followed up with another top tier source, Darmesh Arboy, our friend, of course, of Sky Sports. West Ham confident they can sign Saints captain James Ward-Prowse. West Ham walked away after having a bid of 30 million rejected, but since then a breakthrough. West Ham encouraged by players' desire to join, and personal terms should not be expected to be a problem. Not expected to be a problem. I misquoted it a little bit at the end. You get the general vibe. That's two top tier sources talking about this one too, which makes me think it's very strong. And as I said, once Edson Alvarez was coming through the door, it felt very much like if we were to go out and get a second one, he would definitely be at the top of the list. I know some people, it's a little bit of a controversial one. For me personally, I like James Ward-Prowse for a start as a player. I like the idea of having someone at the club who is a set-piece specialist. I think our set pieces for a couple of years, basically since the overpowered nature of Craig Dawson's head has left the club, I think we have crumbled in the set-piece front. I definitely feel like we should be upgraded on that position, and having a guy who can be a super good corner and free kick taker is a good thing. I think James Ward-Prowse coming in is guaranteeing you basically 10 goals and assists a season. I think he will do that. I think 10 goals plus assists, 10 goal contributions, however you want to word it, I think is definitely plausible for the entire time he's at the club. I understand people's the negative sides and talking about his age, talking about his how expensive it is, and it does feel like we're maybe overpaying a little bit for James Ward-Prowse, but I think he comes in and does a job. It's not my first choice, but I certainly understand that since we've got what feels like a Steidon pick in Alvarez through the door, I understand why the next one would be a David Moyes guy. I get it. I understand the dichotomy. I understand how these things work. And I think ultimately James Ward-Prowse is certainly better than so many other people we've been linked to, although obviously not as good as the very best we've been linked to. It seems plausible, and it seems now like with these people suggesting it's going to happen. Or at least it seems a lot more likely that it's going to happen. Let's see how this one develops. I'm pretty confident that James Ward-Prowse will be a West Ham player by the end of this window. Someone I'm slightly less confident on, but is an interesting name, and that's the left back Ian Maatsen, of course, of Chelsea, played for Burnley last year on loan. Jacob Steinberg at The Guardian, again, another top tier person, someone who is very trustworthy when it comes to news and rumours in regards to West Ham, has yesterday, tweeted, West Ham are looking at a deal to sign Chelsea left back Ian Maatsen on loan with an option to buy. Despite the 21-year-old impressing in pre-season for Chelsea, his future is not certain at the club, with the Hammers getting indications a deal can be done. I think left back is an important, very important position. I think it's one of the biggest problems we have. I think Emerson came in and after a shaky start, I think certainly towards the end of the season started to show that he was pretty good. I think he did pretty well to the point where I'm not thinking he's a complete... I wasn't very happy with him before that. I think by and large the last couple of games I thought he was pretty good. And obviously with Aaron, whatever the heck's gone on with Aaron Cresswell, left back is something that we need to be looking at. On top of that, of course, even if both of these people were playing as well as they ever could play. Aaron Cresswell's age, Emerson's not exactly young. We need to start looking at the future, and we should have I mean, realistically, if we're being honest, instead of Emerson, we probably should have signed someone like Matson. If not him, Truffert, who would be probably my first choice at this point. He would probably be my first choice. We need to be looking at left back. And although we have a lot of money, it feels like, given the Declan Rice thing, the Skamaka leaving and that, actually it adds up very, very quickly. It's nowhere near as much as it used to be, and it's nowhere near as much as it feels. You only have to look at the rumours of the McTominay, Maguire 16 mil deal that were going around, for example, to see that's two players, 60 million. It's a lot of money, right? So if we could get someone like Matson, who I think would be worth investing in and be interested to see if he can make the jump to playing in the Premier League more consistently, and can he be a first choice player in that sense, and without the pressure of, you know, putting him in straight in and sink or swim because Emerson's there and stuff. I think a loan to buy deal would be perfect for this one. Depending on price, of course, I would be very, very happy with this. Unless it's one of those ones where one, is an obligation to buy it, and I don't really like those for obvious reasons. Or two, one of those ones like Zaza where we only had 15 games and then he has to join all that sort of nonsense. If it's just a classic loan with an option to buy, 100% for this. 100% for this. As much as I haven't really seen enough of him, I've heard enough about him to be like, yeah, that's good with me. It's one of those ones Gio talks about where I'm excited despite not having watched him enough, because people talk about it a lot, and it's a vibe. It's a vibe. Ian Maatsen there from Chelsea. And then finally, Lucas Paqueta. This came out of absolute nowhere, didn't it? It started with Tutto Mercato, the Italian press, Marco Contiero is how I'm going to pronounce his name specifically there. Quote, Manchester City on Paqueta, ready offer of £70 million for West Ham. This is all, of course, being direct translated because this is in Italian. Now, I don't really know the track record of Tutto Mercato, right? So I'm like, initially seeing this, I'm like, do I trust it? Do I not? Not really. It's not really something I would put too much stock into. Then we get a follow-up report from G Global. I don't know. They're a Brazilian outlet who say, quote, Manchester City have offered West Ham £70 million to sign Lucas Paqueta. The London club have not yet responded, but it is likely that they'll reject and demand more. Paqueta has been an option for Manchester City since last year if Bernardo Silva left. This year, the proposal was implemented even without the certainty that the Portuguese attacking midfielder will be negotiated. They also directly said that Tutto Mercato were the people who put it out first. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. They put it out first and they corroborated it. So a little bit more information here, and again, they're suggesting that there has been an official offer of £70 million. But again, we're going through direct translations here, so you know something can be lost in translation. Certainly, for example, they're saying they've offered 70 million. It might be a fact that they haven't yet, and things like that. It's always difficult to tell when you're doing these things. I can't speak Portuguese. I can't speak Italian, so I can't really tell. Although smoke without fire is starting to play in my mind, but again, I don't know the track record of G Global or however you pronounce it. Then Fabrizio Romano. Now, this is the top tier. Again, we're talking about these top tier sources. We're only talking about stories today from top tier sources. G Global, Tutto Mercato, I can't speak to. But Fabrizio Romano, quote on Twitter today, or yesterday, I should say, I recorded it last night. Manchester City have concrete interest in Lucas Paqueta. Talks took place with West Ham this week. Not an easy negotiation, but City have added him to the summer targets list, as Marco Contiero, aka Tutto Mercato, and G Global reported. So again, he's putting it out there, and this is when it starts to become somewhat believable, because Fabrizio is a top tier source. He is someone who tends to get things very right. I know fresh in our minds, we're thinking of the Borges deal. There's some miscommunications there. I feel people, for example, saw the words "here we go," but I don't think he ever said West Ham Borges "here we go." He said before "here we go." It's a complicated thing about three words, if we're being perfectly honest about it. But Fabrizio is a very reliable source in these type of things, and someone who we should look at. I really need to sneeze. I'm gonna try and power through it. We'll see if it happens. It's interesting to me. bless me. It's interesting to me, could have edited that out, not going to. It's interesting to me the idea that, maybe I'll mute it. I should probably mute it, it's quite loud. It's interesting to me that he says negotiations happened this week, which again, it suggests that if not a formal offer of £70 million, at least some sort of talks, verbal offers, which has been a big thing we've seen this summer, have been going around. It doesn't make much sense to me, I should say that. It feels weird that, listen, if he was on a list, if Bernardo Silva was going to go last season, if he was on the list of replacements, then that makes sense. I understand that part. Why then out of nowhere, with no pre-warning, no prior indication at all, that they would be interested in a player like Lucas Paqueta, or Lucas Paqueta specifically, are they suddenly bidding 70 million for him? It feels very out of the blue and very, very random. And again, if it was like, okay, if Bernardo Silva leaves, then we go get him, sure. But then why if now Bernardo Silva's not leaving, they go get him? It just doesn't seem to add up to me. It doesn't really make much sense. Could I see Lucas Paqueta playing for a team like Manchester City? Yes. I really like him. I love a lot of the things he brings. I was a big fan of him before he came to the club. Arguably an even bigger fan now, mainly because he plays for West Ham, but there's certain parts of his game that I really, really like, and I think he has shown that he can adapt to the Premier League, which is obviously a difficult thing to do, but it seems odd to me, and it just doesn't add up. I want to ask you, one, do you believe this? Do you believe that Manchester City are interested in it? Again, Fabrizio putting his name to it, Fabrizio's a pretty top tier person, so the idea of him putting his name to it is interesting to me. And secondly, how much would you take for Lucas Paqueta? Now, ideally, obviously, don't want to sell him. Incredibly important. I think selling him this summer would be a massive, massive problem for us. We already have enough problems. Let's not get rid of our best player. But if you were to be interested in a deal, let's say, how much would you actually want from him? Because 70 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But I feel like with the way the market is at the moment this summer, it's probably not enough. If we're being honest, I think you could probably get more for him. And as I've seen people talking about on Twitter, I don't know who it was, so apologies if it was you. I apologize for misquoting you and not being able to credit you. I don't remember who it was. They also didn't go high enough for Declan Rice either. So it just doesn't add up to me. It just seems completely insane and out of nowhere. But the idea of Fabrizio put his name to it is certainly enough for me to pay attention to this one and not write it off completely, despite the fact it doesn't seem to make sense. Maybe one to keep an eye on in the coming week. But I can't see it happening personally. Even if there is some smoke even if there is some fire causing this smoke, I can't see him joining Manchester City this summer. It just doesn't seem to add up to me at all. And then just to quell that fire, just to pour some water onto it. Talk Sport sources understand Manchester City want to sign West Ham midfielder Lucas Paqueta. West Ham are reluctant to sell the Brazilian international. I don't trust TalkSport as far as I can throw him, so that's calm with me. Unless it's Jim White talking about it, then he's probably been told by David Sullivan. TalkSport sources understand. Couldn't mean less to me. So maybe it's all bollocks, because that doesn't add up to me. But let me know how you feel about them in the comment section below. Is Ian Maatsen the left back you would like? Would you be interested in a loan to buy? James Ward-Prowse seems to be coming in. How do you feel about that if it is in the sort of 30 to 35 million pound region? And then finally, of course, Lucas Paqueta. How much would you accept for him, and do you believe this rumour? Let me know in the comment section below. We'll be back tomorrow with the preview for the Bournemouth game. Ladies and gentlemen, football is upon us. Competitive football's here. I'm not ready. I'm not prepped. I've got a cold. I can't be dealing with this. But I will be having to. There will be a preview with Gian Gonzo tomorrow up on the channel. So make sure to stick around, watch that. Not stick around, don't just sit on the channel, wait. Live your life, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. Then you'll be told when it goes up. And like the video, because obviously it helps us out a lot. But thank you for watching. Speak to you later, everyone. Come on, you irons, and enjoy yourself. See you later. Bye, everyone. Bye.